In the 1600s, witches were everywhere, so they say, and especially in the east of England, in the UK. And so to get rid of them, Matthew Hopkins came to town. Witch Finder General. Want to know more? And welcome back to the Brac Shop. And this is the portal to the paranormal, the spiritual, the unexplained. And I'm Tom from the shop. Now, if you like this episode that's coming up, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe and click the notification bell so you won't miss out on any of my other episodes. Now, Matthew Hopkins, Witch Finder General. Sounds like a name that should be in a TV series. Now, not much is really known about him before 1644, when he just surfaced. We think he was born around 1620, the son of a clergyman and vicar of St. John's of Greater Wenham in Suffolk. Now, he inherited about 100 marks and was able to establish himself as a gentleman, and he bought the Thorn Inn in Mistley. Some people even thought he was a lawyer from the way he handled himself. There's been no records to actually prove that he was a lawyer. Now, his career started in 1644 when his colleague John Stern overheard some women talking about meeting up with the devil. It was enough to get them arrested on witchcraft. And his first victim was Elizabeth Clark. She was an 80-year-old woman, old, poor, and she was missing a leg as well. And he managed to round her up, and with his methods of investigation, he was actually able to find more witches, and by 1745, the following year, he had 23 women tried for witchcraft. 4 actually died in jail, but the 19 went on to be convicted and hanged. Now, this was such a success that he had female assistants to help him to search for the devil's marks, and him and John Stern would go along the countryside with their 3 horses, and he actually made quite a business out of this. He would charge a town about £20, so it's written, but in some records it stated that it was like £23 or even £28 for him to come in and clean out the witches. And in today's figures, that amount converts to about £3,800. Mind you, back in those days, things probably were a lot cheaper, and so you would think he got a more value for his money. Now, he based his findings on the Demonology of King James, and this was a book put out on basically recognizing witches, and they were recognized by the devil's mark, and these were numb spots on the body, or spots where they couldn't feel any pain if they were pricked with a knife and they didn't bleed. Also moles or birthmarks, or even a third nipple or breast would indicate they were a witch. And especially if they had a familiar, which was actually a dog or a cat beside them, because those animals would actually suckle off them from the devil's mark, drink their blood, so to speak, and then go off and do the devil's work, like making someone ill or sick or causing something bad to happen to someone else's property. Now, very interestingly, in the Lancaster witch trials of 1634, King Charles I, his physician William Harvey, was at the trials, and he actually judged the women on scientific principles. And he found no reason for them to be witches. And so they were innocent and set free. Now, Matthew Hopkins didn't use the same methods of investigation. He didn't base his findings on maleficium, if I pronounce that right. And that is using magical acts to cause harm to someone or to someone's property. He actually based it on making a covenant with the devil. Now, to get these witches to confess, and actually torture was illegal in England at the time, to get these women to confess, he would use sleep deprivation. Also, walking. Get them walking up and down their cell. But they actually confessed to these acts of consorting with the devil. Then there was the swimming test, which really wasn't much of swimming, really. Through the research, it seems like they were actually tied to a chair and thrown in the water. Now, the idea was that if they renounced their baptism to join up with the devil, the water would actually reject them, so they would float, and they would be a witch. And of course, if they sank, well, they weren't a witch. Now, Matthew Hopkins and John Stern were doing very good business, going from town to town and gaining their money and clearing out these witches, which probably were actually innocent women. They were usually poor and probably dabbled in a bit of herbal remedies. And that was enough to consider them witches, especially from the neighbors. If they'd done something that someone didn't like, they would easily be turned in and then accused as a witch. And with those investigations, it was actually pretty hard to prove your innocence. Now, there was this fear that anybody could be judged as being a witch. In 1446, just 2 years on, opposition was growing. And John Gall, who was the vicar of Great Staunton of Huntingdonshire, was beginning to question Matthew Hopkins' practices. He wrote to Parliament, he wrote a publication and put it out, and he also preached in his sermons to stop the witch hunts, and also the practices of Matthew Hopkins, about whether his practices were legit. And people began to question it as well. Like, what authority did Matthew Hopkins actually have? And there was also talk about how did Matthew Hopkins know about all these things about witchcraft? Maybe he was in league with the devil as well. Now, by the time an investigation was set up, unfortunately, Matthew Hopkins and John Stern had retired, and they both retired back to their home counties. Now, there is rumours on the fate of Matthew Hopkins. Some say the mob actually lynched him up and put him through the tortures that he'd done to his victims. Another theory is that he actually left for America because he also wrote the book, The Discovery of Witches, which helped start the trials and executions of witches in New England in America. But the records apparently show that he died peacefully at home on the 12th of August in 1647 of tuberculosis. And as for John Stern, he actually lived till he was 60, dying in 1670. So what do you think? Did they really believe what they were doing was right? Were they really ridding the land of witches? Or do you think it was a money-making thing for them, getting money from every town they went to round up innocent, poor, old, innocent women they probably no one really cared about, and to get rid of and make a fortune for themselves? So write down below what you think and let me know. In the 2 years he was the Witch Finder General, about 200 to 300 men and women were convicted and hanged for witchcraft. And that was 60% of all the accused, 6 in the 160-year span. And he got that all in the 2 years. What do you say to that? Well, let me know. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please click the like button. It'll help the channel, help us grow. And if you haven't subscribed as yet, please subscribe and click the bell and the notification button as well, so you won't miss out when I release videos of this sort. And I have different videos coming up on the paranormal, ghosts, spirits, the spiritual, meditations, manifestations. And in fact, if you're interested, we're also affiliated with the UK's #1 spiritual store. The link's down below. And they're quite reasonably priced, and they have reasonable worldwide shipping. So click the link below and have a look, and you get 10% off your first order as well. So have a look, and have a look at our other links. And as I said, if you've liked this episode, buy me a drink. There's a link for that as well. And every contribution is greatly appreciated, because you help the channel and you help me as well. So thanks again for watching, and until next time, stay well and happy.